My children soon will be gods. この狩りの始まりだ。
Da 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 da. That's all I can really say about Angry Birds at this point, because Angry Birds was worth so much money at one point. It was worth so much money, had such a neat little idea, even though it wasn't originally theirs. It also had a lot of really interesting marketing done with it. Then there was the Angry Birds movie, which I'd rather not. I watched a little bit of the first one, and it is all right. It's okay, I guess. And then of course there are the microtransactions, the countless amounts of microtransactions. Oh boy. I mean, everywhere you turn, man. Everywhere you turn, you're just getting, slapped in the face with all these microtransactions. And this is the thing, this is how video game companies look at it now. Instead of, you making a good game that will keep people invested for X amount of time, instead, it's about making a game that is addictive enough that will get people to pay little bits of money. It's basically death by 1,000 tiny cuts. This is why I don't play games that have microtransactions anymore. I don't do it. I did for a little bit, but now I'm just I can't. I just don't have it in me anymore. So, The Slow, Painful, Greedy Death of Angry Birds by Sunny V2. We're going to check this out, and we're going to see exactly how Angry Birds fell from grace and sort of took itself out. I mean, it took itself out by trying to do too much too fast, and I don't know why I'm still talking. I know Sunny V2 is going to do a better job of explaining this than I ever could. So, let's go ahead and see what he's got to say.
Back in 2011, Angry Birds was everywhere. They had multiple different games, toys, and movies, generating hundreds of millions of dollars. But by 2019, they were firing masses of staff, and since then things have only gotten worse. Perhaps it's just karma for stealing the initial idea. Angry Birds wasn't an original concept. In April 2009, a game was released named Crush the Castle, which required players to fire a trebuchet into wooden structure hiding medieval people. Well, 8 months later, in December 2009, game developer Rovio made an app named Angry Birds, which, while clearly being a rip-off, was better in every way. It had cooler, cleaner animated graphics, and different stages, each with different levels. You got points for every enemy killed, and points for every bird you didn't use, giving players the chance to compete for high scores. Throw in 5 different birds with 5 different abilities, as well as a cool, catchy soundtrack, and it's easy to see that Angry Birds was better. They developed 51 games prior to Angry Birds, none of which saw even the smallest bit of success. Therefore, when Angry Birds took only 2 months to become the #1 paid app in 60 countries, they understandably took the chance to milk it. They'd make loads of different varieties like Angry Birds Seasons, Angry Birds Space, and Angry Birds Star Wars, helping it become the #1 paid app in Apple's App Store with 6 to 7 million paid downloads.
Here's the thing. I remember getting the original Angry Birds. I think it was Angry Birds and Angry Birds in Space were the 2 that I got. I didn't play Angry Birds Star Wars or Seasons, but I played both of those just to kill time whenever I was in waiting rooms and shit like that. But yeah, anyway.
By the end of Angry Birds' first year, they'd made $10 million US, but players still demanded more. We have so many fans who have asked for the plush toys, so these are going to be available in a couple of weeks, and we're really trying to build Angry Birds into this entertainment franchise. It took only 4 months before that announced 60,000 Angry Birds soft toys have been sold, as the game itself became the best-selling paid app of all time. Within Angry Birds itself, they'd implement microtransactions like Mighty Eagle, which allowed players to pay to clear entire levels.
I never did that. I saw that was on there, but I never took it. I never partook of the Mighty Eagle because it's just like I didn't get the point. It's just like, then why play the game? Much like Crab Souls. Much like Crab Souls, there's gun mode, which basically is like one shot. It's like, I get why it's there, you know, for the memes. They basically call it, I think they call it journalist mode. But yeah, anyway.
With celebs like Justin Bieber even advocating for it. Angry Birds made $100 million in 2011 and went from 28 employees in the beginning of the year to 224 employees by the end of 2011. 5 months later, they set a new world record. First mobile game series to reach 1 billion downloads. They doubled their revenue again by the end of 2012, at which point they started to face a serious problem. The game was getting stale. They'd made multiple different Angry Birds versions, but hadn't changed the concept in over 3 years. As a result, in the following year, their profits more than halved, with Angry Birds falling to 59th in the App Store, forcing the franchise to try a new format. They'd release Angry Birds Go at the end of 2013, and while this was somewhat of a Mario Kart ripoff, people absolutely loved it.
So I mean, it's fun. It is good fun. It looks good. It plays well.
Professional reviewers gave it 7.7, while people on Reddit called it their favorite Angry Birds game and perfection at its finest. Rovio therefore continued to experiment, releasing an RPG game named Angry Birds Epic, which again received incredible reviews, reading, "The latest Angry Birds title is a welcome addition to a franchise which hasn't seen much change since its inception back in 2009. Similarly, users said it might be the best RPG title I've ever played."
And honestly, a pretty solid time. I think the approach they went with here really worked and paid off.
The only problem was, these games didn't sell merch like the original Slingshot format. Therefore, merchandise sales plummeted, while total 2014 revenue dropped, and profits fell 73% to 10 million euros. As a result, media outlets reported, Rovio lays off 110 people as Angry Birds hype fades, representing 14% of the company's workforce. They try to fix their decline with yet another experiment, Angry Birds Pop, which was pretty unsuccessful. In a Reddit thread asking, out of all the Angry Birds games, which one do you think is the worst, Pop was mentioned many times over. Therefore, they'd go back to basics and put out Angry Birds 2, the official sequel, although many called it a downgrade from the original. The sequel was filled to the brim with microtransactions.
Yeah, once again, when your game traditionally has been, you pay for the app and then basically it's skill based and like the stuff that you receive, and there are no microtransactions. Once again,
clearly annoying the fan base, who wrote, "This is a very greedy game that keeps sucking money out of you. If you play well, the game becomes harder and harder until it's impossible, and then you either have to replay each level 10 times or buy gems. The game is just trying to throw you off balance and get under your skin so that you pay more." The official IGN review said the game took significant steps backward for the massively popular series. Angry Birds 2 is missing key parts of what made previous games so universally compelling to gamers both hardcore and casual, young and old. Still, due to its intense monetization, Angry Birds 2 became their highest earning game. Surprisingly, however, that very same year, that announced
I'm gonna say that initial boon that you get from the game sales doesn't pan out in the long run.
losses of almost 15 million and would fire a further third of their workforce, this time being over 200 people. This seemed to imply that Angry Birds was dead until they'd make an unexpected comeback. Turns out they'd spent the previous 3 years privately developing the Angry Birds movie. At a cost of 73 million, they'd made a risky bet, but with a star-studded cast and a fun little story, the Angry Birds movie did surprisingly well. It made over 350 million from its 70 million budget and put Angry Birds back into the public spotlight. People began replaying their previously released games, while Angry Birds theme parks popped up in different countries. Media outlets reported Rovio Games had its best year ever in 2016. However, the gaming releases that Angry Birds was known for was still declining in quality. In his video, I played and ranked every Angry Birds game so you don't have to. Jake Miller talks about Angry Birds Action.
Angry Birds Action was the start of using the new anthropomorphic designs from the movies in their games, which I think most fans agree was the real beginning of the end for the series.
Which happened to be the first game after the movie. Similarly, in the Reddit thread asking about the worst Angry Birds game, one user implied it was most of them after the movie's release. Said games included Angry Birds Fight, aka a Candy Crush ripoff, as well as Angry Birds Match, which was described as extremely bland. However, thankfully for Rovio, their older titles were still extremely popular, with Angry Birds 2's revenue growing 47% in 2018, despite it being over 3 years old. This gave them the budget to make a second movie. However, their $65 million bet didn't pay off so well this time. Forbes wrote Angry Birds 2 is worse than the original in nearly every way, whilst Rotten Tomatoes critics added a distressingly ineffective sequel that grows less and less interesting and more tiresome as it unfolds. Still, the movie made a profit of $82 million, right as the company was making some weird changes. Despite their older games being low maintenance, Rovio decided to completely stop updating them.
Yeah, that's... Ooh. That right there, when you take away the foundation... Here's the thing. Whenever you build something that has a good, stable foundation, it has a foundation that it's able to stand on, and it's able to build off of, then, you know, you make more stuff to stand on top of it. It's all well and good. But whenever you stop updating the very thing that got you to the dance, that's when a lot of the OG, like your player base loses faith in you. And I hate to say it, it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it can work out for the best, especially if you notice your player numbers aren't there. But if your player numbers are still there on your old games, you can see the people who are still playing it. Then oh my god, like, not updating it is the worst thing that you can do.
Then, without explanation, some of the older beloved titles, including the original Angry Birds, were deleted from the App Store. When people began to talk about what they'd done, people made compilations stating Angry Birds was dead. There were comments like, "Remember when Rovio actually cared?" whilst hashtag #BringBack2012 began to trend on Twitter. Things got so bad that Rovio apologized, stating they only did it as maintaining the highest quality of updates and live operations isn't possible with our older games, in response to the backlash that announced they planned on redeveloping Angry Birds Classic, which was re-released on the App Store in 2022, but at a price of $1.99 with no in-game purchases. They'd changed Classic's name to Red's First Flight.
Yeah, that is a bad decision. It is known as Angry Birds. You don't change it to... boneheaded decision right there, man.
Making it harder to find in the App Store, thus prompting players to buy the newer, more profitable games. This successfully fooled some people who struggled to find it on the App Store. However, others knew exactly what Angry Birds was doing. They got rid of the old ones so that you would have no other choice than to play the modern Candy Crush-esque games. They despised the games that made the company and so lost its spirit. Rovio basically confirmed this, openly stating they changed the name due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio.
That's company speak for don't... hold on. Allow me to put on my... let me put on my... where's my translator cap? Can't find it. Just imagine a translator cap. Just... Due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio. We don't want you to play the old games. We want you to play the new games so that we can make more money off of you. That's what that means.
They further requested that fans continue to bring that passion to our live Angry Birds slingshot games, such as Angry Birds 2.
Continue to bring that passion to our live Angry Birds slingshot games, such as Angry Birds 2. Basically, we want you to be as passionate for our newer games that have microtransactions instead of our old games which featured no microtransactions, because we want to make more money off of you.
However, players weren't too happy. We hope those fans can continue to bring that passion to our other games which have been designed to be more psychologically manipulative and stuffed with more microtransactions. Fixed it for you. The drama was so severe, it seemingly halted any future games, as Angry Birds Classic is still the most recent title, released way back in 2022. In 2023, Rovio was sold to Sega, although this has done little to fix their reputation. One recent tweet expressed, "I very much still love Angry Birds. That said, the current state of it is dog shit. My hope for the franchise is at an all-time low right now. I'll just continue to enjoy what I love about it, but it's sad to see what it's become. Despite everything, Angry Birds isn't finished, as they just announced they're making a third movie, although with the rest of the franchise in decline, its performance might be interesting."
Well, hopefully they can get the quality back up. Although them giving it to Sega, I mean, Sega's pretty hit and miss. Sega has its benefits and has its detractors, but yeah, I guess it could work. It could work. That's the key phrase there. It could work. I don't know if it will, maybe, just depends entirely. Here's to hoping, but yeah. Anywho, that was Sunny V2 with the slow, painful, greedy death of Angry Birds. I'm gonna leave a like on that. That was a good comp, and yeah, this was just something else, man. I don't know, like, what the hell they were like. I don't know why they thought they could get away with that shit and not have any pushback on it. You are literally taking away the very thing that people loved about your games. You need to have the... Okay, here's the thing. If I'm them, I'm keeping my main franchise games free of microtransactions. 100% free of microtransactions. That way, you have a good anchor for the casual player base coming in. Then, if you want to do a more professional looking one, or a more like HD rendered one, or maybe one that actually has a story mode to it that has more stuff, like, dude, you could do that and you could still have plenty of time to, you could still like make room for microtransactions in that, but again, you don't need microtransactions to be successful. I know that that's the theory going around nowadays, people saying it's like, oh, well, you need microtransactions. No, you don't. No, you don't. What you need is a good game from a good studio that sells. That's what you need. Instead of this bullshit that they keep pushing out there, they just keep pushing these out and keep pretending like this is what the people want. No, it's not what the people want. The only reason you're making money off this is because of people who have a gambling addiction and can't help themselves. Once again, I have problems with modern game development because they prioritize microtransactions instead of prioritizing the game. Does your game play well? We don't know. Is the story compelling? We don't care. It's like, does it have microtransactions? I'm like, oh yeah. You can get the silver level, the gold level, the platinum level, the the diamond level, the emerald level. There's all these microtransactions on here. That way we can make money. It's like, and therein lies the rub. This is why AAA gaming's in the shitter right now, because of the prioritization of microtransactions from people who don't understand game development, from a bunch of studio execs who, let's be honest with ourselves, probably don't even play video games in their spare time. They're looking at this as a way to make a quick buck, in which, if that's their way of going about it, fine. But every company is doing this now. Every major AAA company is doing this now, and it sucks. It freaking sucks. I hate it. Anyway, that's enough about that. This was, once again, the slow, painful, greedy death of Angry Birds by Sunny V2. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and hopefully we will see you all in the next one. So until then, I'm Nate. I'll see you then. Peace.